Costume designers are rarely recognized for their genius, but they really should be, and today's genius is Mary Zophres in her work on the movie Interstellar. In Interstellar, directed by Christopher Nolan, Zophres does the incredible work of grounding the film's sci-fi elements in realism. Her designs strike a delicate balance between futuristic technology and then human authenticity, so often things feel very functional or very worn, repurposed, so there's all those elements combined. She aimed for a more timeless look, not of the past or the future, but more neutral and practical, and it reflected a world defined by survival and reliance and the repurposing of past technology. The clothing for the families and town people was actually very intentional, simple, faded, and even dusty to match the harsh environment of all the dust coming in. Characters like Murph, Tom, and of course their dad, they all wore this sort of like primary color palette. I know Tom was in more reds, Murph was in more blues, and then their dad was in sort of a brown that got closer to a mustard color. And then Dr. Brand's clothing was very corporate, like what you would see in regular corporate America, but his daughter was dressed in mostly black. Spacesuits were both visually convincing and also practically functional. So designed in-house through extensive collaboration and prototyping, they used 3D scanning, modeling, and fabrication, and each component from like the backpacks to the thrusters to different elements on the suits themselves, they all served a purpose. So they balance utility with aesthetic coherence. And the helmets, although they were difficult to make and they were just a design element, they actually ended up being very practical because they could record audio through the helmet, which means that even though they were outdoors and in harsh conditions, the audio was still really, really clear because it was filmed inside of the spacesuit headpieces. Also, since they were filming with IMAX cameras, which are notoriously very loud, at least at that time, that also helped with that noise. And producer Emma Thomas even said that you couldn't identify it as something as coming from one of the NASA missions, but you feel that it's of that world. Overall, the suits took 12 weeks to make, and then they weighed between 30 and 35 pounds, which made, of course, filming very hard and like physically did take a toll on the actors. It required also cooling systems in order to help maintain the comfort during the performance and to keep them cool, especially in the outdoor environments that they were filming in. And in a quote by Anne Hathaway, she says, "There were moments when emotions were running high or things were difficult. Wearing a suit that wasn't the easiest thing in the world, I thought helped the performances." Ultimately, Zophres' work exemplifies Nolan's dedication to grounded world building, ensuring that every detail contributed to the film's overall emotion and scientific credibility. There was also a great bit of emotional storytelling where Murph wears Cooper's jacket, her dad's jacket, towards the end of the film, kind of showing their close relationship and her following in his footsteps. And because a lot of the costumes were also worked in-house, it means that they had a very close proximity to, for example, the director and also the set designer. So even the quilting and some of the spacesuits made their way onto the set design, and you see the quilting follow inside the spaced ship that they are in. The quilting is all throughout that spaceship, which means that they have a continuity of design both in the costumes and then the sets. Overall, Interstellar is a movie that is rooted in science and powered by emotions, where costumes are not these dazzling novelties, but more digestible plausibilities. And it was very interesting because Zophres had actually never done at least a sci-fi movie with this amount of research before. I know she did some NASA movies after this film, but there was a quote that she had from an interview that said, "After I read the script and got this job, I started doing research because I knew nothing about spacesuits," which is really interesting because now she does have work on films where she's done like NASA replicate spacesuits and things like that. Now, if you have not watched this film, do yourself a favor and watch this film. It is what I consider one of the best films of all time. I have it always as like my top 5 of favorite films, and I think a lot of people would agree with me. And of course, if you want to see any other film analysis, drop it in the comments below. I have a running list and I'll get to it.